which makes me moving on to the first speaker of today. And that's probably also basically in line with what we just heard, looking into the necessity of having a project run at the CIMIC Center of Excellence, which is looking into asynchronization of US civil affairs and NATO CIMIC. And that's where I give the floor back to Csaba, because that's his line of effort, and he will introduce us to his project. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ralph. So again, welcome everybody. Again, Major Csaba Szabo. I am the Deputy Director of the Concept, Interoperability and Capability branch. And in this capacity, this branch is dealing with innovation within the CIMIC and with the interoperability. So therefore, I am also the designated point of contact over the civil affairs community, which is huge, we know it, and it's very hard to embrace it and understand the organizational nuances within the civil affairs, but we are strive for it. And I am the OPR for the civil affairs and NATO CIMIC synchronization project as well within the CCOE. And in the upcoming 15, maximum 20 minutes, I will elaborate on this very project, which probably, and most probably, the trigger why we are here, because this webinar is a CCOE adventure and a very nice tool, and different topics discussed, and we picked up this very interesting topic, the synchronization between the two capabilities. And therefore, I'm here sitting with you as a moderator and a lecturer as well. So can we jump into my presentation, please? All right, let's start with the presentation, the outline of my presentation. I will provide you a problem statement, how we see the two capability status of efforts right now. And there is a problem statement, which is not a problem, but it's a reality. Why did the CCOE initiate it on the first place, US Civil Affairs and NATO CIMIC synchronization project back in 2017-18? The birth date is not really matters right now, but the CCOE committed a lot of resources, manpower for pushing forward this project. And the synchronization project itself, and some way ahead of the project. Next one, please. All right, so as I promised, here is the problem statement. As we identified, and again, it's nothing earth-shattering and nothing surprising in this statement, the NATO as an alliance has two civil-military cooperation-related capabilities, which are operating on the same domain, the human domain, as we can call it, without proper institutionalization, very hard word to pronounce it, and a lack of synchronization and coordination. And again, it's not a problem per se, it's a statement. And if there is a negative connotation of the statement, there is no negative in it. It's just simply reflecting on the reality. And there is a lot of possibility here which we can further exploit it. Usually it's not easy to speak after a general or the colonel or the director. It's not a good sign. And the bar was put it very high by the general. And it's very easy to agree with the general on a lot of things. So apologize to the audience if I'm repeating some of the remarks or words from the general or my colonel as well. Next one, please. So this is an old slide, and it's not the most fanciest one on the world, but it's showing very well how can be depicted the US civil affairs side of the house within the NATO, and within the NATO CIMIC side of the house. And if you see the red bubbles, which are outline the capacity difference, meaning that from the US civil affairs side, the altogether manpower, and now the manpower, the numbers are really not important, because if you see on the yellow boxes, these are approximate numbers. given by a 2020 Civil Affairs Association briefing by the proponent of the civil affairs. So probably it's already changed, but giving you a nice understanding that from US side we have more than 10,000 persons who are dealing with civil affairs. However, most of them, the big portion, is reservist. And if we go to the other side of the house, the NATO CIMIC, then we can see that the NATO CIMIC are mostly active duty personnel. And if we put together the big CIMIC unit within Europe, mostly in Europe, and don't forget Canada has also a CIMIC capability, then we will have approximately 2,500 PACs. But again, it's an approximate number. So you see the difference in the sheer numbers, but if we put together, we can call it a civil military related capabilities within the NATO. And that's a huge number for an alliance, for having a specialty working on a civil military domain. Okay, and again, what is the reasoning why we are doing it? In the middle, you will see it for a better synchronization, to enhance the interoperability, for a mission effectiveness. That's the whole point. Colonel Boxmer, my director, already mentioned this. This is what we are striving for, to enhance the interoperability. Next one, please. So that was the reasoning, and in 2018, a little bit earlier, the KIC branch, MAJ branch, identified the need. There is a need, really, let's say on the market, on the civil military cooperation related capability market, a need for a better understanding, a better synchronization between the US civil affairs and the NATO CIMIC. However, we had a long history working together or coexistence in the same military operation environment, but it wasn't really synchronized, usually based on ad hoc level and based on personal relationship. So therefore, we decided that we will pursue 3 lines of effort within the project of the synchronization: a concept development, a training and education, and an academia line of effort. No surprise, the guiding questions also revolving around these, at least the first 2 lines of effort. Next one. So what we did in the concept development, which is, I consider, the most challenging lines of effort, because it's very hard to show a visible result on this field, because we need to deal with doctrines. We are dealing with a standalone one country national doctrine, the US Army Civil Affairs, and we are, on the other side, we are dealing with a NATO and allied level of joint publication, which guiding the NATO CIMIC per se. So very hard to compare it, very hard to facilitate the cross-referencing with this. However, there was a lot of things which happened when we have a CIMIC doctrine review cycle in every 5 years. We had contribution from our US Civil Affairs side, from the proponent, from the SWIC. So that's happened, but it wasn't institutionalized. It's based on a little bit ad hoc relationship. We received a lot of contribution on our CIMIC handbook. I'm pretty sure our CIMIC community members from all over the world, as I see the participant list, they are familiar with this handbook, which is an online, right now an online edition. And if you deep diving into it, you see that 25-pager from the civil affairs is dealing with the civil affairs itself. So it's a huge portion dedicated to the topic. And of course, currently what is happening right now, and it's not published yet, a study paper, a comparison on the US Civil Affairs and NATO CIMIC doctrine, assessment and a comparison, which is a very important paper for us. So basically, this is happening. There will be a lot. There happened a lot of things behind this. Still considered a very challenging development lines of effort, but we will get back to this problem later on. Next one, please. Training and education, I would say, and don't get me wrong, my colleagues from the training and education, that's the easiest part, because you can have success in this field. You can have more manifestation, real manifestation of the synchronization project, because we initiated a familiarization course on the NATO CIMIC, exclusively designed for US civil affairs colleagues. And we are not discriminating that who is reservist, active duty, or from the special operations side of the house. This is designed for the US civil affairs colleagues for one single purpose: get familiarized with the NATO CIMIC tactics, techniques, procedures, the doctrines, and so on, when it comes to working, especially in the European theater, or in the current setting, what we are seeing right now in the eastern flank of the NATO. Already, of course, the COVID hit, and COVID has evolved also in this case, and we had to switch online iteration, but after finally we went back to the on-site, so the physical conduct of these courses, and we did it so far in the 21st TCA command in Kaiserslautern, and we already did it 2 weeks ago, first time ever in US soil at the US Marine Corps Civil Military Operations Schoolhouse conducted this course. So this is what tangible and manifestation of the synchronization, and this is an ongoing process, and therefore I said it's the most successful lines of effort among the 3 lines of effort. Next one, please. Academia. Academia part, we consider is a very huge and very important partner, the Civil Affairs Association of the US Army Civil Affairs. This kind of association doesn't exist in the CIMIC domain. However, we have CIMIC Center of Excellence, which we can say that parallel, but it's not the same thing. It's an association, I'm just telling not for the US colleagues, you know it very well, for the CIMIC community. This is an association, a non-profit association who are promoting the US civil affairs among the ranks, among the politicians and the governance, and so on and so on. So this is a very progressive organization in the civil affairs domain. And therefore we joined that, meaning that we had always tried to strive for presenting ourselves as a panelist or directors. My branch chief, Stefan, later on, your presenter, always taking part as a panelist on that. We are also take part in the civil affairs issue paper or article contest, writing articles on that, doing with one sole purpose, again, the spreading the message of the synchronization and showing what we do from a NATO CIMIC side to promote this synchronization project. And last but not least, we have connection with the Smithsonian Institute as well. Smithsonian Institute, in connection with the US Civil Affairs and Psychological Operation Command, established the American Monument Officer Training for this is the stuff what the NATO CIMICer knows under the cultural property protection cross-cutting topics. It's an established course when we promoted and we contributed with CIMIC, NATO CIMIC SMEs, how we handle the cultural property protection. And this is our academia line. There is a lot of potential in this cooperation also. In the future, we will exploit this also. Next one, please. What is the way ahead within the synchronization? So as I mentioned before, the study paper on comparison will be published. At this point, I cannot tell you in what way, but definitely will be published. So it will coming soon, this paper. CCOE also continue the conduct of the NATO CIMIC familiarization course, alias NCFC, and striving for the on-site courses, meaning that in June in Fort Bragg, in close cooperation with the 3rd Battalion, we are running the 3rd iteration this year, the familiarization course in Fort Bragg for our civil affairs colleagues over there. And there is another in the line again for the 21st TCA Command HQ Civil Affairs branch requested. This is very important because this is the point when we can meet, teach and educate our civil affairs colleagues who are deployed and employed into the European arena. Follow-up events, naturally we will take part in the Civil Affairs Association events as we did it during the days. All right, next one please. And then summary of the synchronization project. So we identified a gap within the market, and we identified that an intervention needed in order to having a synchronization, a better synchronization among the civil affairs and the NATO CIMIC, because there is a huge potential in this cooperation. Focus on the similarities rather than the differences. This is very important because that makes us step ahead, not step back. And of course, US civil affairs and NATO CIMIC could be more effective, that's our thinking, in countering any kind of challenges coming from the civil environment, which is our claim domain. If we harnessing the synergies within these capabilities, because right now there is something, but there is more potential in it, as I said before, using in a manner of collaborative manner, of course. That was the summary, and now I give my short golden nuggets on the reflection on the guiding questions. So just two sides of the same coin. I would say yes and no. This is the answer, but everybody likes it, I guess. Why am I saying yes? Because same modus operandi, the techniques and procedure is very similar. How we negotiate, how we do a civil reconnaissance, how we do meetings, what we do with this information. It goes without saying. We have almost the same modus operandi. The principles, what we are following when we are dealing with the civil environment, is pretty much the same in the two capabilities. And of course, what a surprise, the operational environment is also the same. At least if we are in the same operational environment, our customers is the civil military environment, the non-military actors. So that would say yes. What is the no? The mandate. US Civil Affairs is promoting and working to push forward the United States interest. That goes without saying. And if we go to the NATO CIMIC side of that, we have the alliance or a NATO operation, which not national interest driven, is not supranational interest driven in most of the cases. That's a huge difference when from the point of departure. Next one. Reflection on the guiding question 2, on the current status, where we are in the conceptual foundation and the doctrine. The current status is that we don't have cross-referencing. However, in the AGP 3.19, we have a cross-referencing on the US civil affairs, but if we evaluate in the US civil affairs respective doctrines, we don't find the referencing on the NATO CIMIC. So this is something we can work on it. This is not really elaborated. Knowledge gap exists, but this is a two-way street. It's a knowledge gap exists from the NATO CIMIC side, what is the US civil affairs, and other way around as well. So it's not a blame game that who doesn't know about the others. It's a two-way street. We know it very well. In terms of training and education, very shortly, no institutionalized cooperation. However, you heard it, we have a lot of things happening, NATO CIMIC familiarization course, but these are based on request, a little bit ad hoc level and not institutionalized, meaning that it's not accredited and accepted by US civil affairs, or in the other side, the NATO not accredited this courses per se. It's a CCOE driven, funded and initiated and conduct course per se at this particular moment. No cross-training, meaning that as a NATO CIMICer, I didn't receive US civil affairs training when it was very needed. And I'm pretty sure in the civil affairs qualification course, there is no NATO CIMIC portion, or at least a training item in it, which can be also mitigated easily. And of course, at this point, the NATO CIMIC familiarization course is a one-sided offer, and it would be nice to be as an institutionalized training opportunity. All right, the next and the last guiding question on my remarks, and I hope I'm in my time, Ralph.
Just take your time.
Okay, because you are looking a little bit strictly to me. The reflection on that, how to enhance the cooperation and the interoperability between NATO CIMIC and USCA. It's already having said that by the general or the colonel, so I can repeat myself, and I already mentioned a lot of things, how we can do it. Make it sure that we are cross-referencing in our doctrinal papers, documents, intensifying it, make it institutionalize it. Yes, we are cross-referencing. That doesn't mean that we are taking over the doctrines of each other without by word. No. Just having insight in the respective doctrinal papers to know each other. Cross-pollination, or maybe this is not the right wording, but cross-training is mandatory. The instructor swap is already working. The US Civil Affairs is one of the, I guess, the biggest instructor contributor for the CCOE. Maybe your training and education guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but probably that's the case. And US Civil Affairs US is not a contributing or sponsoring nation for the CCOE. So recognize and accredited courses from both sides, not just NATO CIMIC, US Civil Affairs course, familiarization course for the NATO CIMICers would be very welcome. Mutual mission involvement, so in the missions really working together, employ and deploy and employ together, but this is really futuristic. However, it happened in Afghanistan. So many times, and in Kosovo and other areas as well. Co-writing on relevant topics, reflecting on the latest developments, meaning that we can come up with articles and study papers on this very topic. And it's also having said that, a permanent US Civil Affairs representation is an utmost importance to push forward this synchronization, because it's always good to have a Hungarian officer is the point of contact over the US, but everybody knows it, it goes without saying, a US officer needed for doing this job in a very high level. Having said that, I guess that was my last slide, except I have one quotation. It's been stolen from my director, and I don't know, sir, where did you get this very nice quotation, but really reflecting on our synchronization project, we have to know each other before we need each other. And now we are in the phase of we have a phase, but not to know each other phase, but the we need each other phase, it's not, has not come yet. All right. Having said that, pending on the questions, I give back the floor to Ralph.
Thank you very much, Csaba. I think you need a deep, deep breath now, and probably some water.
Yes.
Which helps you to stay with us. Yeah. Thanks for your encompassing and comprehensive presentation on what we can expect from the US Civil Affairs and NATO CIMIC synchronization project, and the 3 lines of effort connected to it, which very much connect to the guiding questions we are looking at today.